Hey guys, this is Cam315 back at it with another video for you guys, and I'm back here with another My Hero Academia manga chapter review. Now, the last few manga chapters, I've been reading the unofficial translations and then just waiting until the official translation comes out. But this chapter, man, when I read it, and how hyped this chapter was leading to chapter 320, I'm sorry. This is gonna be one of the few occurrences where I'm gonna start my review early and it's gonna go up before the official release comes out. Obviously still go support the official release of the manga, even though some people say translations aren't as good for the officials than not, but I will I'll see. I'll see if I make any, I guess, backup videos after the official, translations release. But my goodness, this My Hero Academia chapter, man, was the 2 week break like worth it, man? This 2 week break was definitely worth it, and Horikoshi fails or doesn't fail to let us all down again, because ever since the war arc has started to this point, we have been getting heat after heat after heat after heat after heat. My freaking goodness, dude. You get to the end of this chapter and you just see how it's going and gonna good, how it's gonna be going. It's just insane. Who would have ever thought? So in chapter 1, oh, guess what? Deku's gonna be getting to UA. And he's gonna be fighting these same exact people. Or really, not the first chapter. The first chapter, they bring, they have the entire class 1A, and you say, well, guess what? Deku, eventually everybody's gonna find out his secret, and he's gonna have to fight him because he wants him to get out of his way. He would never have told me that, yeah, that's gonna happen. He's gonna fight his own friends. Nope. You would have never told me. I would have never believed it was Bakugo who was the one leading the charge to save Deku. You would have never convinced me, and this goes to show you just the depths, the characters of this class that has grown over the time of My Hero Academia. We even find out that they're still technically first-year students, even though technically they're second years by now. They would be second years by now, but they're still first years. And the fact that these, kids, they see their friend in need. They see a friend. Hold on, no, Siri. They see a friend that needs saving. They see that has this burden. He's carrying it all alone, and they know, look, regardless, we may be the weakest in the class, but we're gonna do everything in our power to save our friend, and that's to do that. But let's get into this manga chapter review. The chapter starts off a few days after Midoriya has left UA, so this is essentially taking place a few days after the war arc. In the present time, I guess it was a month ago, but regardless, we see Bakugo ripping up the letter that Deku had sent to everybody in class 1A. And he essentially says, like, that damn nerd, he's definitely with Endeavor's group and stuff like that. So then that's when Ida says, well, why don't you, Todoroki, or why don't Bakugo, Todoroki, or Tokoyami get in contact with your hero representatives, which we know Tokoyami's Hawks, Shoto's obviously Endeavor, and then Bakugo's Best Genius and stuff like that. And they essentially say, look, dude, we tried to get in contact with them. They're just not picking their phone up and everything. Like, they know, like, look, okay, we know the heroes are busy at this point in time. We know, but something's not up here. They have to be hiding some things from us. They're definitely not telling us something for a reason, stuff like that. Now, Jiro makes the mention of the fact that All Might hasn't come back to UA either, and stuff like that. We find out some pretty interesting world building for UA. We find out that their classes have been suspended and that their graduation to the next grade has also been delayed. The Hero Corps students have been placed on standby and asked to help secure the perimeter. Obtaining any detailed information is difficult, especially in the environment that they're currently in. So we find out that essentially right now, Class 1A would already have been Class 2A, but because of this whole thing going on after the events of the war arc, it has halted anything UA is doing. It's different from, say, Ketsubutsu, because when we saw Ketsubutsu high school students from a few chapters ago, when this whole stuff aftermath of the war arc happened with Tatami and Yo, we saw that, well, guess what? They're already third year students. So it seems like some schools, hero schools in Japan, depending on how they feel, are continuing their education, while maybe some others are just, we're gonna, until this whole thing blows over and seems like things seemingly get back to normal, that's when we're gonna move on to the next step for these students and stuff like that. So that means people like Mirio, the former big three. I can't remember these characters' names on the fly. They haven't graduated from UA yet, because technically they would have graduated and they would have been pro heroes by now. Even though technically they probably are still doing pro hero stuff. And things like that. Now, Bakugous says Jeans and Spatula, Bird, which he's talking about, Best Genus and Hawks, were contacting Deku at the hospital, and All Might was there too. And Bakugo makes a point saying about the letter, if he's too scared to even get near UA, then who sneaked this at midnight between it? And then essentially Bakugo, hammers it down to the fact that it was All Might that more than likely was the one that snuck in obviously the letters and stuff like that. Now, obviously Kaminari replies by saying, if we know he's with the adults, shouldn't that alleviate our worries? And he goes on to say, I thought the media declared that only the top three teamed up. If that's the case, All Might isn't involved. And that's essentially when Bakugo's like, well, that's why. You see, Endeavor doesn't know Deku and All Might like I do. I know them best. And essentially, Bakugo's knowing what Deku is doing is the worst possible scenario. Essentially, he knows he's doing the opposite of what All For One wants Deku to do. And stuff like that. So then that's when, obviously, the class comes up with a way to try to get in contact with the pro heroes, and that's when Ochako, she comes with the idea with, let me just say, Ochako, this entire chapter, she has a face of flat out determination to bring her boy Deku back. Obviously, her love interest back, the person she cares about, obviously, and that's mostly what the true reason why Class 1A is doing this. They're not worried about him. They care about Deku so much. And like I said, I'm not trying to single Ochako out, much as like the others. But we know Ochako has feelings for Deku, and she knows, obviously, she cares about him a lot, and she wants to see that she's okay. And then we know that Ochako's been on this whole idealistic thinking of who's going to be there for heroes when they need saving. So, this could be, I guess you can say, her start to becoming her very own pro hero and stuff like that. So she comes up with the ideas like, well, Endeavor was a UA alum. Let's get in contact by being a little bit more pushy. So their plan was to talk to Principal Nezu and essentially lure Endeavor there, because obviously you know that every time Todoroki was calling Endeavor, it never really worked and stuff like that. But they get in contact with somebody that Endeavor will go to because, okay, something might be up. Guess what? They go to his former principal Nezu. So that's when, after that happened, after we cut over to the scene where, guess what? Endeavor arrives at Principal Nezu's office, and all Class 1A, in their regular, school attire, all show up right behind him, looking to essentially confront him. And obviously Endeavor knows that this has been a trick and everything. And Nezu essentially says, I heard what they had to say and decided there was room for discussion. I'm constantly receiving status updates after all. And that's when Todoroki's like, why do you keep ignoring my calls? I thought we both agreed that we would take Toya down together, which he's saying this out in the open. So this means, obviously, I'm guessing after the whole Deku stuff, maybe Todoroki's like, hey, I got something I have to tell you. Listen, one of the League of Villains guys named Dobby, he's actually my brother. He's my older brother. And me and my dad promised me that we would take him down together. So maybe because he's saying this out in the open, so, and nobody's shocked about this. So that means he had to have told everybody by now. So it's like, I'm guessing Class 1A had a whole, whatever secrets you got to get out now, get them out now. And it seems like that's what happened and everything. And that's when Endeavor's like, the sentiment alone was what saved me back then. And stuff like that. And essentially, Todoroki responds with saying, but I don't feel saved at all. Is Midoriya any exception? And he's like, you're letting Deku and All Might act together, aren't you? And that's when Bakugou steps up. And he starts to continue Todoroki's speech. And he says, I knew it. Yeah, you probably made the right call. At least it's close to being the right call. But you just don't understand nothing about Deku. Like I do. He goes on to say, that dude is crazy. He doesn't take himself into account. Essentially saying, listen, if you knew Deku how I did, you would understand that Deku doesn't really care about himself. He doesn't care if his body's hurt. He doesn't care if, he's got damn near every bone broken in his body. If he can move, he's gonna do whatever he can to try to save people and stuff like that, because he's trying to do the same thing like All Might did back in his prime and try to become the symbol of peace and everything. And we've seen this in the past from Deku. We've seen him break his bones over and over again and not give a damn when it comes, because he just wants to save people. And he'll do anything to save people. So if it's like, we know back then, it's like if we knew, well, I have to use 100% of my power, even if it breaks my arms or my legs, I have to do it to save somebody. He would do it and he wouldn't care, and stuff like that. And essentially this is when, and I love Bakugou saying this, he essentially screams out to Endeavor saying, we can't just leave them be. Essentially, but it's more reference to Deku, but essentially he's telling Endeavor like, dude, we can't leave Deku all by himself. We can't. And this goes to show the character development, and you can see the fact that Bakugou cares about Deku. He really does. And he's had a complete character development from the point on the first chapter. He saw Deku as just some sniveling coward that he had no aspirations to help or assist or elite and even befriend. But over time, Bakugou's heart has changed from that old personality of himself. He's become a person where he realized, yeah, he gets on my nerves every now and then, but he's somebody I can call a friend and stuff like that. And this is and he remembers, like, Midoriya Deku has always been there to help Bakugou and been there, I guess you can say, quote unquote, save him. Now Bakugou, you can say, is repaying the favor. He's like, I have to save him. Because me and the other classmates, we're the only one that can save him. And stuff like that. We get a quick little flashback where Hawks and Best Genius finally get the word that, well, Deku has, I guess, ran off from All Might and he doesn't need his help anymore. And stuff like that. And that's when Endeavor's like, well, we're just going to have to support him from the sidelines. We need to match his pace. And stuff like that. So then that's when Endeavor pulls out off of the GPS tractor, and Sarah's like, is that the GPS tractor? And then essentially Endeavor just kind of throws it up in the air, and most of the characters, Mineta, Hagakure, Sero, Koda, they all die for that phone and stuff like that. And they all ask, can we borrow this? And that's another thing I like about some of the lower members of Class 1A. They make mentions, even like Koda. He's like, yo, I haven't done much of anything. I don't have this close a connection to Deku like maybe some other characters. I'm not the strongest. But I'll be damned if I'm going to let my friend go out there and try to weather this thing all on his own, all on his lonesome. And it really goes to show you about Class 1A, which now, well, I've always had respect for Class 1A. Mostly some of the more higher members, but seeing this, even from some of the lower members, you see that they don't want to give up on somebody that they see they deem as a friend to them, somebody they went to school with every day, somebody they lived with after really the whole Camino Ward incident and everything. You know, they want to help their friend, and I loved. This was probably one of my favorite panels and my favorite dialogues of a My Hero Academia character in the entire series. Again, I cannot wait for this to be animated. And essentially, Todoroki's like, not confiding in us about his worries with One for All is one thing, but for him to think that we would be convinced with a letter like that, it was a big shock to us. But, and then this one, again, Ida says probably up to this point, the best words he has said in this series, the best words. And we know all the shit Ida has been through. Because guess what? You can essentially relate everything Deku's kind of going through, what Ida went through back in season 2 in the Stain arc. And that was essentially taking a burden on all by himself when he knows damn well that's not a good idea. And, you know, he tries to reject his friends who seemingly look worried about him. Ida's been where Deku's been at. Not obviously as deep as Deku has been, but Ida's been to the point where he's trying to take on Stain all by himself, and he almost gets himself killed. And Ida knows better than anybody, Midoriya keeps doing this, the same thing could happen, if not worse. And Ida says this, I'm gonna read this word for word. We, the members of Class A, will follow him wherever he decides to go. No matter how much responsibility comes with wielding One for All, Midoriya is our friend. How can any of us smile tomorrow, knowing that our friend is walking this troublesome path alone? Reading that line almost gets tears into my eyes. You don't understand the powerful writing that happened right there. So one, props to the Horikoshi for writing that shit. Now, I don't know if that's the official, now that's the unofficial, but I guarantee you the official thing will be somewhat similar to that. I love that thing about Ida saying, yeah, we know he's got we know that he's got this burden. We know he's a successor to All Might. He's got this insane power that for days after days after days in all our training classes, we always wondered, his quirk is different than all of us. What the hell is going on with him? And we see that he has this insane burden where, guess what? He's gonna more than likely be the person that saves us all. And is the guy that has to stop All for One. And Shigaraki. And yes, we know the burden that's gonna come. We know that he's struggling. But at the end of the day, he's not only our classmate, but at the end of the day, he's our friend. And we're going to follow him. We're going to have his back. Till the very end. I really like that sentence from Ida. Because again, it goes to show you how much he's grown. And we've seen after that Stain incident, he wants to be there for his friends, his classmates. He doesn't want to let one of them try to do things on their own. Because he knows better than anybody else in the class that when he tried that on his own thing, trying to get revenge on Stain for injuring his brother really badly. He knows where it almost had him end up. It ran him into the ground because all this one thing he thought about was taking down Stain. He didn't really ask or request for help. He didn't care about other people's concern because we know Deku and Ochako at that time, they voiced their concerns. They're like, hey dude, are you okay? And Ida's just like, I'm fine, don't worry about it. I'll see you guys when I come back from my internship. That's the same thing Deku's going through. Although it's a little bit more harder and there's much more of a burden on Deku because of One for All. But we know the one thing on Deku's mind is just getting up, stopping the next person, finding information about All for One and Shigaraki, and trying to put a stop to them. We know that's the only thing on his mind. We know the thing about All for One telling him, you're next. You know, I'm focused on you now. It's getting at him. It's eating at him. And only Deku's focusing on that. And he's having this warped sense of, I guess, justice in trying to save the day instead of realizing I'm not taking the right approach. I'm walking to All for One's hands. He wants me to be tired out. He wants me to be weak. So when he confronts me, he can easily take me down. And guess what? I can't do nothing. And I like the fact that Ida says, I don't care if it's against any damn villain. It could be All for One for crying out loud. We're gonna stand right beside him and assist him whatever way we can. I really do like that writing. That was some good ass writing from Horikoshi and some good ass talking by Ida. Endeavor goes on to say the outside world is dangerous and there's no sense of order. You guys are still, and that's when Nezu says, well, from that speech alone, can't you tell that they've all grown? And he goes on to say, given that Deku is the main target of the villains, I thought it would be best if they had teamed up since he didn't want to come back to UA. But that's when Nezu says, but he's allowed to come back. And essentially, he goes on to say, as soon as we sent out like the acceptances of them getting into this school, essentially they became students of UA. You know, and they became students of UA that we have to protect. Deku is one of our students, and we're gonna protect him no matter the cost. And that's when Endeavor's like, but what about the safety of the civilians that are here and stuff like that? And that's when Nezu's like, the designated evacuation areas were only chosen based on scarce footage. I'll tell them. We prepared it when we reinforced the school way back for the school the cultural festival. The thing where obviously you had UA, you know, singing at the end when Deku, the arc where Deku was fighting Gentle and stuff like that. And he calls it the UA security barrier. It's our preparations will finally show our worth. And Nezu's like, look, it's okay. All Might grew up here. You know, he came here. Please lend him a hand and help him come back to save Deku. So this is when we cut back to the present. We see all of Class 1A together after Bakugo has stopped the dictator. And we see them all right then and there. Civilians are freed and they're all running away. They're thanking them and stuff like that and everything. So then this is when Deku, we see the confrontation, which I always was waiting for to see this. Like, how is Deku going to act when he sees Class 1A again? And essentially, it's the reaction that I thought I would get, especially knowing how much Deku's going through. So Deku, he looks at everybody leaving and he's like, why are you guys here? Why? And Ochako responds by saying, because we're worried about you. And that's when Deku, he's picking up his mask and everything, and he's like, I'm okay. I told you guys I'm okay. Didn't you guys not read my letter? I'm okay. And that's what, and then as he's putting his thing back on, he's like, that's why I told you guys you shouldn't worry about me. Just stay back, get out of my way, let me do what I need to do. And that's when we have Bakugo come in with one of his best lines and essentially saying, oh, well. That sounds great, yeah. Master All for One user, future successor and stuff like that. Just great. So, and again, as good as Ida had his line here, Bakugo says a line which made me just blow my mind when I read the spoilers. And when I read this over, it still hits me crazy hard. And Bakugo says this, so, hey Deku, after all this, can you still keep smiling? And when I heard this and read this line, I was like, oh, damn. That definitely had to touch a nerve, and then Deku. That definitely had to touch a nerve. And when he said that line, I was like, ooh, this is getting crazy. And you clearly pan over to Deku, he's looking down, and you can clearly see that ticked him off a bit. Because Deku damn well knows he ain't been smiling through this entire process. He's been giving a pretty, defeated, depressed-like look. He hasn't been smiling this whole thing. And we know the one thing Deku wants to do is he wants to continue to smile as he's saving people. And throughout this entire thing, he hasn't been smiling. He hasn't even looked like he's been smiling at all, at one bit. So Deku responds to that statement from Bakugous says, to be able to smile, for people to live in peace, I need to keep moving forward, so all of you get out of my way. As he's activating All For One the quirk, and the thing is this, I read the spoilers, and when I read that part when he tell him, hey, get out of the way, I'm thinking he's saying this calmly, like, look, get out of my way, I don't want to do something I don't want to regret. But this man in this panel gets a full spread page image, and at the top of his lungs, he's saying, all of you, get the fuck out of my way. Otherwise, you're gonna make me do something that I'm gonna regret. I don't want to hurt you guys. And then the chapter ends off with Bakugous saying, just try and make us you all might wanna be. Ida says, we know you won't change your mind. Let's go, guys. And Ochako, along with everybody else, says, yeah, let's do this. And that's where the chapter ends. And this is Clashing Emotions, Fierce Classmates versus Class A begins. Essentially, hinting at the fact we are getting Deku versus Class 1A. Now, I don't know if I said this in one of my previous chapter reviews, but I've always had this feeling. That whenever Class 1A meets Deku again, especially with this warped Deku personality right now, what he feels like he's doing right, but he should know this is not the right thing he's doing. He's playing into All For One's hand and stuff like that. We know All For One's hand is, yeah, let the damn kid just tire himself out, weaken over, and guess what? We can come in, and when he's at his weakest, when he's at his exhausted, his most fatigued, that's when we can easily steal one for all from him. And guess what? We kill him, and we rule essentially everything. All For One wants him to do that. All For One doesn't want Deku to do the most sensible thing and, take a few days off, maybe a week off or two, and let the other other heroes take out some villains while he rests up, gets back to normal, where he gets back to full strength, and then he can go back into hero work, and then guess what? He's rejuvenated again. And stuff like that. All For One doesn't want that to happen because he knows if Deku does that, there's a higher % chance that All For One knows that he's going to lose. Now, regardless if All For One's gonna have a backup plan, if Deku goes back to UA to get some rest and recuperation, we'll see. We saw with the Lady Nagan situation, All For One had a backup plan for that. Nagan failed? Well, I'll just blow her up. So who's to say? Maybe they bring back this UA trader thing, and maybe that's walking right into the trap. We don't know. So that's another thing we can keep. We need to keep a close eye. Yes, Class 1A wants to bring him back, but at the same time, we also got to put in our mind. Yes, that's good, but at the same time, we got to be put in our mind that, well, guess what? This could also be a trap set up by All For One, because we know this man likes to have backup plans for his backup plans for his backup plans. But as I was saying earlier, I always knew if if the entire class was going to confront Deku again and see this Deku, I just had the feeling like Deku's not gonna like that. Deku is not gonna like that, and he's gonna be like, what the hell are you guys doing here? I don't need you guys' help. Let me do this on my own, get out of the way, and move. And I always knew, I'm like, if provoked, I feel like Deku's gonna fight them, and he's going to attack his own classmates, because in his eyes, he sees them as things that are in his way, that he feels like they're not understanding what he's doing. And that's the thing. Deku doesn't understand that his classmates, his friends care about him, and they're worried about him. And he doesn't see it that way. He sees it, I need to stop All For One and Shigaraki the fastest. I have to continue to do this. And we know in All Might's prime, he continuously kept trying to do hero work. What did that got him? Look where it ended up getting him. It ended up getting him hurt to where essentially he was doing less and less hero work over time. And Night Eye in that one flashback said, if you keep doing this, All Might, you're gonna run yourself into the ground. You're gonna die a horrible death, my dude. And we saw, only a few chapters ago, that All Might now realized what Night Eye was telling him, and now he's seeing the fact that Night Eye warned me the same exact thing that young Midori is doing. He's running himself into the ground and he's gonna get himself hurt. We saw in the last chapter, before Deku came across Dictator, this man damn nearly passed out on the floor. And he couldn't do much of anything when Dictator had most of the civilians, controlled from him. Which gives him my thing. Well, if this ends up turning into Class 1A versus Deku, well, will Class 1A win the fight? Now, listen, in a grand scheme of things, Deku 100%, not fatigued, not tired, not anything. He mops the floor with all of them. Let's get something straight. With the quirks Deku has now accumulated, Bajin, Black Whip, Smokescreen, Float, Danger Sense, and he still has the second user's quirk left to go. That was his last one. All those quirks, just 5 of them. Danger Sense, and I guess all for one for all if you count that as a 6th quirk and stuff like that. But 100% healthy, fully healthy, not tired Deku. He mops the floor, especially with Fajin alone. All the Class 1A, because especially the fact that he can do pseudo 100%. Guess what? He mops the floor with each and every one of them with utter ease. Even Bakugo. We know how strong Bakugo is, but let's be honest. He's not at the level anymore where Deku is at, because especially with the different types of stuff. And remember, Class 1A, they haven't seen all of Deku's quirks. The only quirks most members know Deku has is just Black Whip. Most of the members don't know he has Float, Bajin, Smokescreen, and Danger Sense. The only ones that know that he has 2 are Todoroki and Bakugo. They know he's got Float, and they know he's got Black Whip. But other than that, they don't know about Fajin or anything else. So, and then second, Deku knows the ins and outs of their quirks, each of every one of them individually. He's a classmate of them. He knows them. He knows Mineta's quirk. He knows Ochako's quirk. He knows Ida's quirk. He knows Bakugo's, he knows Todoroki's quirk. And he knows they've all been improving their quirk in their own way. So that's another thing, Deku's got an edge on them too. But I think if this ends up becoming a fight, I feel like what's gonna happen is this. It's gonna end up fighting, obviously Class 1A is gonna know, we're gonna have to fight our classmate to change his mind, to make him wake up from this thing, this warped vision of him thinking he doesn't need our help. And one thing, I feel like it's gonna go the direction of a fight, and then I feel like when they finally detain Deku, and they shut him down for a bit, that's when they're gonna try that top jutsu stuff and maybe try to change his mind and stuff like that. Along with maybe what I think could also change his mind completely, which I think we all know is the death of All Might. I think the death of All Might is coming sooner rather than later. I really do believe that, and I really do believe the death of All Might is what's gonna finally make Deku wake up and realize I've been taking this approach wrong. And stuff like that. And I feel like what's gonna happen is, in the fight, there's gonna be a fight between Class 1A and Deku. Deku's gonna essentially get the upper hand on them. He's gonna be kicking their asses pretty fairly easily and stuff like that. But then just like Dictator, Deku's gonna have that one slip up because he's too exhausted, he's too tired. He's gonna slip up one time. Someone like Bakugo's gonna pick that up, take him down, and they're gonna try to talk him down and be like, dude, we don't care. We're gonna force you back to UA if we have to. And that's when maybe some characters bring the fact, listen, dude, we're trying to save you from doing something that we don't want you to do. And that's getting yourself hurt or worse, killed. And guess what? Most of the main cast members can say in their own ways how one of them was saved by Deku. Not all of Class 1A has been saved by Deku at one point, but a few members. Ochako has been saved by Deku about multiple times and stuff like that. Ida, that one time, was saved by Deku. Todoroki, Deku saved him by telling him, You know, just because, you know, your dad wants you to do this doesn't mean, guess what? You don't have to listen to your dad because it's not his quirk, it's your quirk, and you do what you want with that quirk. Bakugo, he saved multiple times, and he's always landed out that helping hand. And they can all say, listen, various occasions, you saved one of us. Now we're here to save you from yourself. And I think the thing that will get to Deku a little bit, but I think the tipping point to Deku finally waking up, finally realizing my approach has been wrong, is the death of All Might. And whether that's him finding out about the death of All Might happening, or him like at the Night Eye death, where he's at All Might's deathbed and he's listening to All Might's last words. Maybe All Might gets killed, but he has the will to live till he sees Deku come at his deathbed, and he says something that will make Deku finally realize what he's been doing is wrong. And yes, Deku can see him in the Vestige world. He can see All Might in the Vestige world. But at the end of the day, he's not gonna have that person, that his idol in their real life, right then and there, you know, telling him, hey kid, you did a great job today. I'm very proud of you, and stuff like that, you know? And that will probably get to Deku. And I think that's what's eventually gonna happen. I think he's gonna be detained by Class 1A. I think we're gonna get All Might's eventual death in the coming chapters. I really believe that All Might's death is coming sooner rather than later. I really believe it can come as quick as the next chapter. They can just cut away and somebody just kills All Might. Or in the next 5 to 10 chapters, that happens. Deku finds out about this, and then he sees either the dead body or All Might just barely alive, essentially speaking his last words before he passes away. And that's when Deku will eventually change. Maybe he'll be depressed, then somebody can have a heart-to-heart, which I think would more than likely probably be Ochako in that case. We'd have that heart-to-heart talk, and then that's when you can say that, and after that, and he gets his motivation, he gets rested up. You can say that will be his rising moment, his coming-of-age moment to be the hero. We see here at the first, when he explains at the start of this series, this is the story how I became the world's greatest hero. And maybe after the death of All Might, that's going to be his coming of age, where this is when he realizes, I need to do this. Even though I am a user of One for All, I need to use as much help as I can get, because I can't do this alone. And that's when not only will his friends fall behind him, but that's when the pros will start to fall behind him and be like, he's different. He's the ultimately different hero. And then that's when we can go on there and see the craziness and hecticness. But this was a great chapter. I love the determination by all of Class 1A to bring this somebody they consider, they know as a fellow friend, to go out there and try to save him. And if they have to fight him to do it, they know, guess what? We'll get down and dirty, and we're gonna keep continuing to save him because he's our friend at the end of the day. So yeah, I know this video is probably extended most than what most manga chapter reviews on YouTube is, but I really wanted to get my full thoughts on this chapter and really explain in detail and my own opinions what I feel like, what is going to happen, and how I feel like about these characters. But this is a great chapter. This 2-week break was definitely needed because we got a fire-ass chapter. Again, I don't know if we're gonna get another break. We'll see. But my goodness, this was a great chapter. I enjoyed this chapter, and hopefully you guys did as well. I'll see you guys hopefully next week for chapter 320, when it looks like it's gonna be Deku versus Class 1A. Till then, guys, hope you guys like this video. Leave a like. Put in the comment section your thoughts on this week's manga chapter for My Hero Academia, and hit the subscribe button to get more My Hero Academia content, whether it's my anime reviews or manga chapter reviews, and hit that bell icon to get any updates or any information of uploads I have to the channel if you are subscribed. Other than that, I'm gonna get out of here, guys. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day or night or when you check this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.